Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the Kchecks training webinar. Kchecks is a web-based software solution to help your organization meet the very cumbersome federal and state requirements that mandate that organizations that deal with Medicaid and Medicare check every 30 days for excluded, disbarred, and sanctioned individuals. If you were to do this manually, and some of you have experience working with the exclusion process, you know how cumbersome it can be. Organizations like yours use Kchecks to make the exclusion screening process smoother and easier for you and your organization. Today's webinar will go through the Kchecks system, from logging in to adding records into the system, to resolving potential matches, to running reports. Additionally, I will talk about best practices to help your organization move through the exclusion screening process. Let's get started. Kchecks is a web-based software solution, so everything is done at kchecks.com. So when you start working with the system, I recommend that you bookmark kchecks.com. From there, you will log into the system using your current user login. Your organization will have set you up with IDs and passwords, and you will come here to access the system. You will select the current user login. Now, for someone for the first time that they are logging in, you will have to enter in your username. Your username is your email address. So I have already populated mine. You will see it here, and then you will continue. For security purposes, we have an MFA code activated. Your organization can choose to activate MFA code or to leave it deactivated. I'm going to enter that number now for an enhanced security component. And then I will be taken to the password section. Now, the first time that you are logging into Kchecks after you have been set up, you will be assigned a temporary password. You will enter that password, and then you will be prompted to change it to something specific and unique to you. I'm going to enter it in now. My password, you will see here that normal legalese, the information you're entering is truthful and accurate, and then you will be taken to the sign-in section where you can select what accounts you want to work in. This section right here may or may not apply to all of you. What this section shows you is the list of accounts that you and your organization have access to. If your organization has multiple accounts and you are set up as someone who is a super administrator, and that means you can access multiple accounts with a single ID and password, you will see those accounts listed here. For those of you that are working in just a single account, and I'm showing you what will be working in my demo account here, you will come from the login to our main landing page, which you will see right here. You will see that there are several icons to help you navigate through the system. These are our most frequently used icons, and on the toolbar, you will see the exclusion management tab that will give you a complete resource listing of the Kchecks tools. Additionally, in the upper right corner, you will see the name of your account and your name, your email address. Under user menu, you'll have additional resources such as Kchecks webinars. So if you want to take a future training webinar or need a refresher, you'll have that here. If you have you need assistance, you can generate a help ticket and the Kchecks team will assist you. And lastly is the help topics. This webinar, I think you will find, will be tremendously helpful, but there are times that you get stuck or need a refresher, and these help topics will cover those frequently asked questions. They will have detailed step-by-step instructions as well as screenshots for you to see and navigate. Coming back to the system here, you will see again our frequently used icons appear on the main dashboard. As I mentioned, you have the drop down with your complete resource listing. There's no right or wrong way. Let me emphasize that. I will in fact be using both in our webinar today, so just keep that in mind. Scrolling down, these are what we call our fast fact boxes, allowing you and your organization to take a look at a glance key data that is in the system. Starting off on the right under monitored entities, you will see the total number of records that are in your system that are being monitored. These can be employees, vendors, contractors, referring physicians, medical staff, volunteers, you name it, whatever you choose to enter in here. If I were to add a record into the system, that number would increase from 1,139 to 1,140. If I were to deactivate records in the system so that I wouldn't be matching them going forward, let's say I remove 4 records. These are termed employees or individuals who are no longer working with your organization. This number will go down to 1,135. In the middle shows you your last match date. This is when your monthly match takes place. You will see that the October match took place in the beginning of the month. And so 30 days from now, you will see this number change and the records are run. Important things to note about Kchecks for you and your organization. Once records are added into the system, they are run automatically for you by Kchecks. You do not have to initiate the run sequence. The system runs it automatically for you. Okay? Your only obligation is to make sure that you have your records in the system. Additionally, whenever new records are added into the system, they are run immediately upon being added. They are run and can be reviewed within 24 hours. And then they are synced up with your existing records, and everything is run together at the end of the month. So what I mean by that is you do not have to go into the system on the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, the 9th, the 12th, the 23rd to look and see where things are. All new records are run twice in the first 30 days, and everything is synced together. So once records are added, they are run for you each and every month. So it's a nice feature on Kchecks. I don't want to say it's set it and forget it, because you still have to make sure that you're entering new records and deactivating old records. But the system makes sure that you are meeting the requirements for every 30 days. And then lastly, on the left side is unresolved match count. This represents the number of records that require your attention after records have been run. It does not mean that these are 388 excluded individuals. What happens quite often is what we call common name matches. Names like Smith and Jones and Rodriguez produce high numbers of potential matches that require your attention. In this case, you would resolve them. Most likely, these records will be resolved with not our employee, middle name, middle initial does not match, not our employee, the date of birth does not match, not our employee SSN does not match. It is critical that you make sure that you have a zero balance by the end of the month before the monthly match sequence takes place for the next month. The last thing you want is to have a handful of records that have been unresolved. One of the individuals on that list of unresolved matches turns out to be an excluded individual. You are beyond the 30-day window, and that is when organizations get in trouble with fines and penalties. So it is critical when using Kchecks that you have that zero balance and that unresolved match count shows 0 before the next month is completed. Now, having said that, you're probably thinking, wow, every month I'm going to have a lot to do. That's not the case. Rest easy. What happens is that initial upload of records in that first month, that will be your heaviest lift because of the volume and the number of records that you are adding into the system. Going forward, it is more of a maintenance process. So months 2, 3, 4 will get much easier, because once you resolve a record, and I'll show this to you later as we continue on, once you resolve a record, the system remembers it, and you will not have to deal with it next month or the month following. Perfect example is John Smith is a 23-year-old nurse's aide at your facility. John Smith, who's on the unresolved exclusion list, is born in 1985. This is not your employee. The date of birth does not match, and you are able to resolve that record. Once you resolve that John Smith record, you will not have to deal with it going forward. The system remembers it, it is memorialized, and you will not have to address it again. The only way that you deal with John Smith again is if you hire a new John Smith or the feds or the state release a new exclusion fence for John Smith. And I will show that again as we get into the system more. Scrolling down, Kchecks news section. We recognize that you and your organization have a lot going on. The last thing that you need is to be inundated with emails about things from our organization and or the system. Having said that, anything that we want you or your team to know about will appear in the Kchecks news section. Newest information is always on top, and it is retained for 90 days, and then it will be moved to the archive section. This information will be letting you know that matches have been completed, files that are available to review, downtime, maintenance, anything we want you to know about will appear here. So what I always tell people is take a look here when you log in for the first time on any given day, make sure there's no new information, and then go about your business. Once you are set and have everything ready to go, the first step is to come in to manage monitored names. This is where everything begins, really, under the big yellow pencil. So I'm going to click on manage monitored names, and you will see all of your records that your organization is monitoring and maintaining in Kchecks. You will see several fields and headers to help you identify records. Entity ID. This is the ID in your organization for a particular individual. This can be your employee ID, your vendor ID, medical staff ID. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use the information that you have and then go from there. We want to make it as easy as possible for you. So this can be your payroll ID, your employee ID, vendor ID. License and NPI number. For medical staff or credentialing, very simple. Those records go in here. If an individual does not have an ID or an NPI number, simply leave it blank. Not a problem. Organization. These are your vendors, the companies you work with, your brick and mortar stores, what have you. Go ahead and put the organization that is your vendor in this organization field, okay? Do not put the organization broken out in the first and the last name. For example, if it's XYZ Medical Equipment Company, don't put XYZ in the first name field and medical equipment in the last name field. Everything goes in the organization field. Last name, first name, self-explanatory. Couple things to point out. If the individual has a middle name, middle initial, and I recommend that you put in the middle names and middle initials if you have them to help you identify and rule out individuals as not being your employee or not being excluded based on the information provided by the various federal and state files. Last name, hyphenated last names, two last names would go in the last name field, okay? So if it's Smith Jones or Smith Davis will go in the last name field. Date of birth, very simple, self-explanatory. It is month, day, year, okay? Obviously, vendors and companies you work with do not have dates of birth. Simply leave it blank, and we put in the dummy date and populate it for you. So that 1/1/1910 is our handiwork, so you don't have to worry about it. Scrolling down, throughout this webinar, you will see the emphasis that Kchecks has on documentation. Again, we are here to assist you, make your lives easier. So when an auditor shows up and asks for specific information, with a few keystrokes, you can pull that information up. For example, you will see on the bottom here the ability to export files. Excel, Word, CSV, PDF, so all right here for you should you need to produce it. So an auditor shows up, they want to see certain things, you have the ability to pull that information. Under the last name field, for example, let's take a look at it. Click on here to sort in these columns. we start A to Z, Z to A. In my demo, I'm starting with organizations because these fields are blank, and then we will go to alphabetically A to Z for us here. I hit this tab again. Notice I flip it around, I'll go Z to A. So you have the ability to go in ascending or descending order. Click it a third time, and then we're back to the beginning for us right here. Now, you also have filtering capabilities. So auditor asks for specific name. You're going to hit your Smith, type in Smith, hit the filter icon, hit contains. All your Smiths come up or combinations thereof, and you can see the number of names that are produced. You can expand your page size by 10, 20, 50. Completely entirely up to you. I personally like to work with a smaller set of numbers and records. You may be more comfortable seeing everything on one page. Completely entirely up to you, and you have that flexibility. Decide that you no longer need to work in the filtering component. I hit unfilter or no filter, and you're back to the beginning. You have the ability to deactivate or edit records. If I come over to the edit record icon that you see here, click on it, record is highlighted in gray. So you can add or make changes. Let's say you get license or NPI number for Scott Rogers, and you decide to put that information in there. That's great, and then you would save that information. But in this case, what we're doing is we're deactivating a record. Scott Rogers comes to HR, says, hey, look, I love working here. Great organization, but I'm leaving at the end of the month to be closer to my family. No problem. You come in, you hit the uncheck the active box. And what this means is the record will no longer be matched going forward from this point on. It also means that we do not wipe our data. We keep it indefinitely. So it's available to you for audit purposes. So if an organization, to give you an example, let's say an auditor shows up to an organization and says, hey, I want to see the information for Scott Rogers. You can say Scott hasn't worked here in 6 months, but here is the entire match history during his tenure with our organization. And with a few keystrokes, you can pull that information up. Any changes that you make must be saved. You can't go to the next record or to a different page. Those changes will not be implemented. So we're going to want to hit the Save, Edit Record icon. Changes have been made, and notice that record is removed. So you can take a look here, and you see that I went from 1139 down to 1138. Now, having said that, I can select Show Inactive Monitored Entities here, and you will see all our records. Unchecked represents records that are not active, checked are active. And notice the number jumped to 1256 from 1138. So if you're looking for something specific, you may want to select the show inactive records, but if you're only looking for active records, just keep working in the system without the show active, inactive monitored entities here. And like I said, I'm always working in the active records only, but if I need to, then I flip those on. Now, there are two ways for you to get records into the system. You can manually key them in. You can upload them as a batch in CSV or text tab delimited. And so there's no right or wrong way for you to add records into the system. Organizations quite often use both. What we find is if you have a large number of records, you are going to upload those into the system. If you have a handful of records or individuals that have been onboarded, you may key those in. And again, it really depends on the people doing the work and what you're comfortable with. Person A may elect to say, look, I'm just more comfortable keying records in as opposed to working with spreadsheets. I'm worried about data entry errors, things like that. I'm just going to key those in. So anything under 20, I'm going to key in. Person B may say, nope, I work with spreadsheets all the time. I don't want to be keying stuff in. Anything more than 3, I'm going to upload, okay? Really dependent on you and your team, what you want to do. There's no right or wrong way. As I said, it's completely entirely up to you. Having said that, what I will say is, and what is critical, is making sure that your information is current and up to date. Really scrub your data prior to adding them into the system. The old adage, garbage in, garbage out, no truer words have been spoken. So make sure prior to adding records that your stuff is good, okay? How do we add records into the system? Well, I'm going to start with adding a new monitor name manually for us. Click on that. And you will see that the default here is for individual. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in the ID. Again, employee ID name. Birthday, month, day, year. Notice here for license or NPI number, I'm going to leave this blank. I'm not putting this in for the individuals. And then I'm going to hit add the record into the system. Keep an eye on the center of the screen. Happens quickly, but you get confirmation that a record has been added. Boom, successfully added the record. Now, if I want to add not an individual, but an organization or company, watch what happens here. Notice you see entity ID, date of birth, last name, first name for the individual. When I select organization, we remove first name, last name, and date of birth to avoid any data entry records. Errors. Obviously, companies don't have dates of birth, so making sure that you have the right fields so you can help enter in your correct information really makes a difference. And again, we want to be able to assist you. So again, you would just add your records as they go. They are added, and then they will be run. And so just to show you, come in, manage monitor names, and notice John Davis has been added, today's date, date of birth, and today's date show that the record has been added into the system. A little best practices and tips for you and your team. What I like to do and take a look when I'm working with an organization is making sure there are no gaps. And that tells me that maybe an organization hasn't added records in a while. So the example I use here is, look, you go from 5/22 to 8/14. Are you telling me that you didn't hire anybody or you didn't have new people to activate? If that's the case, that's fine. There's a hiring freeze, what have you, not a problem. But generally speaking, you want to be able to see a consistent pattern of records being added. Now, organizations are different. Some organizations may elect to add their names at the end of a week. Others may do it as staff is onboarded. Completely entirely up to you, but I would recommend that you have policy and procedure in place and protocol on how you want to do things. And that is how you manually add records into the system. Going forward, we now move to the upload center. And this is where we go for adding batches of records. And I click on this, upload center. I told you before about our help topic pages. What we decided to do with uploading records, because we didn't want people having to toggle back and forth. All your instructions with regards to uploading a record are on this screen. So you don't have to go back and forth or leave this page, making it a little easier for you. But there are a couple of requirements with regards to uploading records into the system. First and foremost, file must either be a CSV or a text tab delimited file. That's the format. Headers are required. Those headers, you saw them, you know them. They are the entity ID, last name, first name, date of birth, organization, license, and NPI. When the information is put in these files, it looks something like this. Notice the commas, the hard returns, the spacing with regards to the record. They are in the appropriate cell, row, and column. Okay? You're not just throwing everything into the first column all together. You're in the appropriate cell, row, and column. Now, you're probably thinking, God, this is just one more thing that I have to do. Well, we recognize it. Again, unfunded mandate, adding to your current workload. Kchecks is here to make your lives easier. So we give you the Microsoft Excel template for you to populate that data. So you don't have to create it. Click on it. It pops up. And you will see here, Excel spreadsheet with entity ID, last name, first name, date of birth, organization, license, and NPI. Okay? You would just, what I recommend that you do is save this template as it is. This is your master template. Okay? You're not putting any data in here. Name it, Kchecks template. Kchecks upload record template, whatever you want to call it is fine, but save it blank. Then you go ahead and you put in your data in the appropriate fields. If you do not have information for license or NPI, simply leave it blank. Do not remove this column. The system needs to see all the headers to be able to successfully upload the records. And so you've put your data in, it's correct, and then you would go ahead and save it as a CSV or text tab delimited file. For example, Kchecks October upload, Kchecks November upload, whatever you want to call it, save it, name it, and you're good to go. Then we come back, once we've got our data where we want it and we are ready, we're going to click on Get Started with uploading your data. Okay? You're going to choose your file. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to pick this file, and then I'm going to test it. We have you test the file to make sure that the information is correct. The last thing you and your organization want is to upload 100 records into the system. There are 2 errors somewhere, and the system just uploads 98 for you. You're going to be furious. You're going to be scratching your head. You're going to be wondering, where did the 2 records go? Well, with Kchecks, if you have an error on line 34, you will see it. If there's an error on line 72, you will know about it. Okay? There is no guesswork. Having said that, the most common error when you test is someone has just tried to upload as an Excel spreadsheet. So I click on a test, incorrect, format. Okay, I see what I did there. I go back, I correct the file. Same thing, test it, but this time when you test it, if it's correct, the system is added the records into the system, but it is still waiting for assignment. You are not done. This is important. You are not done. You must choose what you want to do with these records. Are you adding them to be monitored? The majority of the time, you absolutely are. That's what's probably going to happen. But you also have the ability to deactivate records. Remember, I showed you earlier how to manually deactivate records one at a time. With Kchecks, you are also able to deactivate monitored records. Important note on that. You must make sure that all fields are correct when deactivating a record, that you're doing apples to apples. What you can't do is just put Thomas Jones, no date of birth, no entity ID and name for a deactivation. The reason being is, and it will make sense to you, is what do you do if you have more than one Thomas Jones? How does the system know which one to take? By having all of the fields, the system will know what records to take. And then lastly, reactivating inactive records. If your organization is like so many that I work with, you have students, seasonal help, volunteers, people who work with you from Memorial Day to Labor Day. They leave and return the following May. Great. If they've done something to be excluded, when you reactivate them, Kchecks will hit on them and you will be notified. And lastly, again, you will see in the corner that export component should you need to do it. So what happens is records are added, they are run, and then they will be able to be reviewed within 24 hours for new records. On the monthly run, Kchecks will send anybody who's an administrator in the system an email notification that the match sequence has been completed, and then you can go and review your records. Just a gentle reminder that the monthly match has been completed. There will be no information in the email about excluded individuals. Think of it more as like, hey, your bank statement's ready. Go in, take a look. You can do that. Once you do that, get that notification. You're like, great, Kchecks has notified me, match is run. I'm ready to go to the review matches. Click on that, the binoculars, and you'll see you have 388 unresolved matches on 102 names. Do not panic. This does not mean that you have 388 excluded individuals. Think back to what I had mentioned earlier with regards to Smith, Jones, Rodriguez producing high numbers of potential matches. Again, common name matches may be a result of your records being added into the system. We select the monitored entities. Now I'm going to pick somebody that has a bunch of records so you can see them. I'm hopeful that the one I have selected has a lot. Perfect. This is a good one. This is your James Davis. This is his ID at your organization, and this is his date of birth. These are the excluded John Davises, and we have a nice sampling here from the state of Texas, the federal OIG, the SAM, EPLS, Office of Professional Management, federal OIG, state of Georgia, New Jersey. Last name, first names, NPI numbers, providers, if they're applicable, dates of birth, region for which they're excluded, and the exclusion date. Okay, all right here at your fingertips. And so now what would happen is we would work through to clear these records in the system and resolve them for you. So a couple things that you can see here. We'll talk a little best practices. Again, you remember I talked about middle names. So if our James Davis right here is James Robert Davis, you're going to be able to glean from this that these individuals right here are not your employees because the middle names do not match. Dates of birth do not match here for this individual. Region is a helpful tool, but it should not be the sole reason why you resolve a record. Simply saying, oh, my candidate, my employee said they never lived in Phoenix. Well, that may or may not be true, but we also know that individuals who are excluded can sometimes be less forthcoming with their information. Now, something like this on the bottom, where you kind of build your case, and then this shows your exclusion date. Here's a perfect example of how it works with the information. James S. Davis. Now, again, I said, our person's name was James Robert Davis for purposes of this demo. Okay, so the middle name does not match. Also, we come over here and we see date of birth is 1977. Well, this individual's exclusion offense was 1986, so the age does not match up. And then lastly, Springfield, New Jersey, you can say, the age doesn't match and the individual has never lived in Springfield, New Jersey. And so that's how you work through and clear some of these records. So let me show you the process. I'm going to select our friend here, James S. Davis. And when I select that, additional boxes drop down. You must select a note type in order to resolve a record. So in this case, we are resolving a match. So this is a potential match. This is a match resolution note. And then we are going to come over here to note text. You never, and these are kind of best practices, helpful hints for you and your team. You never want to resolve a record without some type of note. And the reason being is you resolve this record for James Davis. Now, 6 months from now, an auditor shows up and says, hey, what's the deal with James Davis? You're going to be scratching your head looking, I have no idea why we resolved this record. There's no notes. So it is critical that your notes be clear, concise, and to the point. You do not have to write a novel or an essay, but you want to put in the information that is direct to the point and, most importantly, does not lead to any follow-up questions by an auditor. Remember, Kchecks, we're here to assist you, protect you, provide the information that you need. So if you type in not our employee, oops, maybe if I put that there, not our employee, and just leave it like that, that's going to beg a question from an auditor. Well, why isn't it your employee? What about that? But if you put not our employee, middle name, and DOB do not match, that clear, concise, to the point, and does not lead to any follow-up questions. Now, what would normally happen is I would add this note and the record would be removed. And I'm going to do that in a second, but I want to show you a couple things. One of the things that our clients love about Kchecks, because you're looking at this going, Scott, why do I have so much information? I got to do this. I got other things I can do. This is not necessarily making my life that much easier. Well, you're going to love this feature. If I click on Select Recent Note, the system remembers your last 10 notes. So you will get to a point where you won't even have to type. And you will just select the information that you want, and then you would add it to be resolved. Notice the record is removed, and it is moved to Show Resolved Matches. Where you will see this information is Monitor name, James Davis. Potential match, James S. Davis. The file type, confirmation that it was resolved, who it was resolved by. In this case, it is resolved by me. Going forward, it's going to be resolved by you and members of your team, so that will appear there. Shows you when the record was resolved, today's date, and then if you click on the magnifying glass, the details of that resolution. The first part of these records are all of the exclusion information data, with the last 3 lines being your resolve work, so you can see clearly all the information right here. This information cannot be edited, removed, modified, or deleted, thus providing you with irrefutable, inalterable proof that you're meeting the requirements. In the event that you forget something or want to add something, do not panic. You can simply add a note, type in what you need, and it is pinned to that record. You can search by your records. So if I type in Davis and hit search results, I'm going to get all my Davises here. Don't need that anymore. I'm going to show all my records. And again, let's not forget, you can export it to Excel, Word, CSV, PDF should you need it. So what would happen is you would work through to clear these records either one at a time, or what many of our clients love is what we call the mass resolution feature, where when you know that it's not your person, you can clear large batches of data with the exact same note. So I've selected the records I want to match against. I want to resolve, click on match resolution note. In this case, I'm going to click on the prior ones, and I'm going to say not our employee, middle name and DOB do not match, or I can say, yep, middle name and DOB does not match. Click the wrong thing. And you'll have it. And watch what happens. These 4 records will be removed, leaving you with a handful of records that need to be cleared. Now, Mass Resolve is a great tool, but I will say this, it should only be used when you're certain that it's not your person. The last thing you want to do is clear a record that you're not sure about and it turned out to be your person and they are excluded. That's on you. That's on the organization. That's not a Kchecks thing. What do you do if you have a record that you're not sure? You don't think it's your person, but you're not sure. How do you get more information? What do we do? Well, we make your lives a lot easier because you click on this Texas file and you see the information here and you're like, I don't have enough information. Well, we give you the hyperlinks to the various federal and state files. Gone are the days of having to look up the URLs. Right here, I type in, watch what happens. We type in Davis, John Davis, and I hit search. And it comes back with a potential record here. This is where, from HR, you enter securely your employee's SSN, and then you verify. And you see SSN does not match. Perfect. I come back to Kchecks. I click on our friend here. Match resolution note. I select the details. Now, I've already done this, but type this, and you'll probably have this for other sites. Watch what happens. Not our employee. Check Texas website. SSN does not match. Boom. Documentation right here. Solve record. Record is removed. Now, once I've cleared all these records, and I mentioned this earlier, the system remembers it. So I will not have to clear those James Davises in months 2, 3, 4, etc. The system knows that you've resolved them. They're not going to show up again. So if you remember, I said that first month when you have all your records, yes, that's your heaviest lift. But then going forward, it is more of a maintenance process. You're not going to have to deal with it as much. Now, with regards to records like James Davis or James Smith or Jones, if you hire a new James Davis, then yes, those records will appear again. New name, new record, new date of birth, let's say for the person, you're still going to get those matches. Or if the feds or the state release a new exclusion offense for the individual, then yes, you will get that as well. And that is how you resolve records in the system. Let me show you one more thing. This is important, a feature that I really like. So, what do you do if you have a record that you think is a match, or it shows up as a match? The date of birth, the information you do your monthly resolves, and you're like, oh my God, this person's a match. Well, in all likelihood, it's not going to be you that terminates the individual or investigates the individual and then makes a decision on whether or not to terminate them. But you find a match, and you're going to kick that up to the powers that be, whether it be compliance or legal. So you type in match found, sent to legal for next steps. Okay? Watch what happens. When I do that, and the record match found, and I add it, you're like, Scott, the record's still here. What's going on? This starts your audit trail, okay? Put a pin in it. Think of it like that. And then it is referred to legal, compliance. You shoot out an email. They investigate, interview the candidate. So 3 or 4 days later comes around, and the individual is terminated. So you get an email from legal that says, hey, great catch. Individual was in fact excluded. Kchecks did its job. You identified it. We took next steps and terminated the individual. That's when you come in, select match resolution note, notified by legal, individual was terminated for exclusion. Watch. Now I click on this, record is removed. So what I just did with having the match found, and I hope you don't have to have a match, you find a match and have to deal with it. Match is found, appropriate chain of command, record is passed on, action is taken, person who handles the resolve work is notified and able to resolve the record. It is bundled up with a start and end point and nice and neat package. Clients love this because it puts any questions by an auditor to bed, and it makes your life easier, not having to run around and try to figure out what was done and what wasn't done. Again, Kchecks provides you with irrefutable, inalterable proof that you're meeting the requirements. Lastly, and we'll move it along here, show you some key things as far as documentation goes. I put in all these notes. You will do this as well going forward with your organization. We have a detailed notes report that shows you match found, general notes, resolution notes. You will see here, look, all the records are right here, what action was taken. You can export this to Excel, Word, CSV, like I talked about. So if you're looking for someone in specific, so you have resolution notes or those match found notes, look, I just put in those match found notes. I click on it, notes pop up, all right here. So if an auditor says, I want to see the notes for Smith, Jones, and Rodriguez, with a few keystrokes, you can pull that information up. Scrolling down, match preferences. These are the files you're matching against. You may not be setting these. Your compliance department, your legal department may set, but we check all available federal and state files. And you have the ability to select those that you want to match against. And then finally, we come back to the main landing page, and I'll take you through the match detail report. This is where all your information lies. This is your bread and butter, this repository right here. You can search by all individuals or a particular individual, whether resolved, unresolved, match month, and year. I personally like to work in all months and having the information right here like this. And then what happens is if you're looking for a particular individual, and keep an eye on the entity field here, watch what happens. I start typing, I type S, I type H. Notice how things drill down till I'm identifying the record that I'm looking for. I select Karen Shoemaker here, and you will see all the information for Karen for all months of 2025. But most importantly, let me point out some key information here. Entity add date. This shows you when the record was added, okay? Karen was added on June of 2012 for the in Kchecks for us. So from June of 2012 to present, you will have match history and information on her. Notice here we have the match months right here broken down for you each and every month, giving you the documentation, and then it shows you no match. It is just as important to have information on no match as it is to match up against 2 or 3 files in the system, okay? Let's be honest. You've never been excluded. You're probably never going to be excluded. But you still need to show the documentation that your records were run through the system or proof that you are meeting the requirements. So no match is just as important as matching up against 2 or 3 files. So what would happen is, with an auditor showing up again using that Smith, Jones, and Rodriguez example, an auditor would ask for, John Smith for all of 2025. You would set the parameters, show all the information, and then export the data for the auditor. And with a few keystrokes, you would have the information that you need. And that wraps it up for me. Bottom line, Kchecks is a very cost-effective, easy-to-use, web-based solution to help you meet a very cumbersome process with regards to the exclusion screening monthly requirement. The Kchecks team really prides itself on being subject matter experts. In addition to, I think you can see that the system is very user-friendly. 2 or 3 times through the system, and you will be proficient. Having said that, you are not on your own. We are not an organization that says, thanks for buying the software, best of luck to you. We are here to assist. As I showed you earlier, you have the help tickets that are responded to within 24 hours, but you also have the Kchecks help team where you can call in, ask questions, and answer questions as well. And your team will always have a representative to assist you on best practices, to help you with your process and work through to better use the system and better meet the unfunded mandate, which is the exclusion screening process. So that wraps it up for me. I thank you for your time. I look forward to working with you in the future. Have a good day.